Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about Dr. George Washington Carver. So to start off with, he was born in 1864 at Diamond Grove, and he died on January 5th of 1943. He received his bachelor's degree in agriculture during 1894 and his master's degree in 1896. Carver went on to become director of the Department of Agriculture at Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. George Washington Carver made more than 400 products from peanuts and sweet potatoes. He invented the concept of crop rotation. This concept improved farming worldwide. So some more facts about him. He was an American agriculture scientist and inventor. He promoted alternative crops to cotton and methods to prevent soil depletion. He was the most prominent black scientist of the early 20th century. He developed hundreds of products using peanuts, sweet potatoes, and soybeans. He was born a slave a year before slavery was outlawed. He earned a master's degree in agriculture science from Iowa State University. He taught and conducted research at Tuskegee University. So this book, it includes him. There, he's right there. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this book about him. On a cold, dark night in 1864, a gang of masked white men burst into a slave cabin near Diamond Creek, Missouri. They surrounded a baby named George and his mother, Mary Carver. "Please don't hurt my baby," cried Mary as she held the sickly boy in her arms. The men ignored her. They were slave raiders. They kidnapped slaves and sold them in different states. The gang snatched Mary and George and rode off into the night. Moses Carver, a white slave owner, owned Mary, George, and Jim, George's older brother. Moses sent a man to search for Mary and George. The man found the cold and sick baby boy, but George and Jim never saw their mother again. Moses and his wife, Susan, raised and cared for the boys. The more George grew, the more curious he became. Young George spent a lot of time outdoors looking at plants. How do flowers get their color? George wondered. What makes plants grow? This curiosity later helped George Washington Carver become a world-famous agriculture scientist. Young George was very smart. He grew all sorts of plants in his garden. If they were dying, he made them healthy and strong. "George sure has a way with plants," everyone said. They called him the plant doctor. When George turned 12, he left home to go to school. Though slavery had ended in 1865, many schools would not accept blacks, so George traveled all over Kansas to find black schools. Kind families took him in while he studied. He washed clothes and cooked to earn his keep. In 1886, George graduated from Minneapolis High School in Minneapolis, Kansas. He was 22 years old. The next year, George was accepted to study at Simpson College in Indianola, Iowa. George studied art at Simpson. He was still curious about plant life, so in 1891, he went to Iowa State College of Agriculture in Ames, Iowa. There, George studied plants and farming. He graduated in 1894. He was soon to be Instructor Carver. For a while, he taught at the college and took care of the greenhouse. He continued to do experiments with plants, and he discovered cures for plant diseases. He was encouraged. At Simpson College, young Henry A. Wallace took walks with George Washington Carver and learned about plants and flowers. Wallace later became Secretary of Agriculture for the United States. By the Wallaces, a prominent family in the community, one day George received an important letter from Booker T. Washington. He was the head of the Tuskegee Institute, an all-black college in Tuskegee, Alabama. Important letter from Booker T. Washington. He was the head of the Tuskegee Institute, an all-black college in Tuskegee, Alabama. "Would you please come and teach at our school?" asked Booker T. Washington. George happily accepted the invitation for the job of professor. In 1896, he arrived at the institute. Cotton farms surrounded Tuskegee. After years of planting cotton, the soil was worn out. The farmers were having problems growing their cotton crop. Insects ate up the cotton that did grow. Without cotton, farmers couldn't make a decent living. George was able to help. He taught his students how to make the soil healthy, and he taught the farmers too. "We need to put good things like peanuts into the soil," said George. "Peanuts are healthy and they taste good too." Professor Carver helped black farmers improve their crops. The farmers planted peanuts, and just as George said, the soil became healthy. The peanuts grew and grew. Soon there were too many peanuts. "What are we going to do with all these peanuts?" asked the farmers. George wasn't sure, so he did many experiments. He found that he could make many things from peanuts. He made oil, soap, and butter. In total, he made over 300 products from peanuts. Professor Carver's research helped change the way farmers planted their crops all over the South. He was invited to speak about his work with peanuts to the United States Congress. The professor studied other crops too. He made 118 products from sweet potatoes, flour, starch, and rubber, to name a few. Because of his research, sweet potatoes and peanuts became the biggest selling crops in the South. Soon, George was written about in newspapers everywhere. Colleges invited him to speak. People sent him money for research. Important businessmen such as Henry Ford, who designed cars, and Thomas Edison, a famous inventor, offered him jobs. But George did not take the jobs. He wanted to teach. George continued to teach until he was very old. Professor George Washington Carver died on January 5, 1943. He had taught at the Tuskegee Institute for 47 years. Dr. Carver helped to make soil healthy by growing peanuts. And that is the end. Thank you.
Hi, this is Michelle Taylor Frazier, founder and executive director of Multicultural Educational Programs. As you know, we're starting a new online program for children and their families. Today, we are filming in my backyard with my neighbors, and we're going to plant a garden together. Welcome.
Hello, Michelle.
Hi, I'm so glad you guys could plant a garden today with me.
Me too. Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself to everyone?
I'm a student at 4 and I'm in 3rd grade. I'm a son of that 4 and I'm in 2nd grade. I'm Mohammed Dapur and I'm
My name is Usman Darfur and I work at the Fire Store and we are neighbors here. We're glad to be with you guys.
And we're so glad to have you guys here today. So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is pour some water up to about right here so that the little peat moss gets real soft. 3/4 cup, right?
Yep.
That's right. Always put your gloves on when you're working in the garden because dirt is not always clean. Sometimes animals come by and go to the bathroom in the dirt. So we want to make sure we always wear gloves in the garden. He could use those little gloves too if he needs to. Whichever one. Oh, great job. So right now, hi Selma, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Welcome to Multicultural Educational Program.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, so Masuda poured her water in. Now her sister's pouring hers in. And the peat moss should get very soft and swell up in just a few minutes. That's okay. That's all right. That's why we're outside. That's all right. No problem. Okay, so once you get your water poured in, do you see the peat moss changing at all?
Yeah.
What's it starting to do?
It's starting to dry up.
Can you bring it and show Miss Amy what it looks like? Just kind of turn it towards the camera. Oh yeah. That looks great. Okay, so the next step, once the peat moss gets nice and soft, you can touch it with your glove and kind of poke it and make sure that it's soft. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Muhammad. Excuse me. Okay, we're going to tear open the seed.
Who won the cup?
I'll take the carrots.
Do you like carrots?
Nah, I'll just take one.
Oh, they're really good for your eyes. I eat carrots every day.
You like yours?
I love them. And I love pretty flowers too. type of things do you like to grow?
I like to grow watermelons and flowers.
Watermelons and flowers, okay.
I like to grow watermelons and strawberries.
With strawberries. My mom used to have a strawberry patch. They're good. I'm allergic to them, but I love strawberries. Okay, so 2 people chose carrots, is that right?
Yes.
And Muhammad is going to choose the zinnias.
Yes.
Now the neat thing about zinnias is they come in a lot of variety of colors. And so when you plant your flowers, you have to guess in a few weeks what color is going to come up. You might be surprised. There they go. Okay. Push it down just a little bit so it's covered in dirt. Now remember every day to put a little water in there if the soil is dry. I want to thank you guys for planting in the garden with us today. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. This is Michelle with Multicultural Educational Programs with planting in my garden today. Take care and see you next time.